Welcome. I'm Sue Scott, and my pronouns are she, her, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, we greet you today with love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching us on YouTube. Please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're in Oklahoma City, what neighborhood? Or if you're elsewhere, what city are you in? Welcome to First Unitarian Church. And now the prelude prepares us for worship. We're now going to light our chalice. Rosalinda Espinosa and Caleb Gonzalez are lighting our chalice, celebrating their 1 year of membership. We light our chalice in Midtown, Oklahoma City, on land that was home to First Americans, including the Apache, Caddo, and Wichita. On land that was taken from the Muskogee and Seminole and other removed and relocated peoples. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. You will notice that the memorial candle is lit today as well. It has been lit in remembrance of the life of Tim Larison. Tim was a longtime member of the church. His children grew up in the church, and he was a church treasurer for many years. Please remember Tim and family in your prayers and meditations. A service for Tim Larison will be held next Friday, November 29th at 2 p.m. at the church. Also, it is that time again to make the holidays brighter for a child whose parents are part of the drug court. Stop by the display in Daniel Hall to select a child or two. Becky Talent will be there to explain more about the program.
Good morning. Well, this seems like a terrible idea, doesn't it? So there's a story, if you're curious how this actually happened. It was an accident. When they started talking about who wanted to be a worship associate, the job description was not fully written. So we thought we would be sitting over there, and so here we are instead. I figured at this point we'd done everything else, though, because, the bells let us do the preludes and the postludes, and the choir lets us do the hymns and the anthems, and we've reflections and readings. This is the only spot we didn't get to stand yet, and I like it because it makes me feel tall. It's the only thing that's ever made me feel tall. So we'll give this a try. What are we grateful for? In a world of division and anger, a world of conflict and chaos, what are we grateful for? For each of us, that answer is very different, sometimes very personal and very powerful. But here in this shared space, we'll take just a moment to also show gratitude that we are still here, still struggling to appreciate a world at times, but above all, here, to keep trying to show the world and the ones that mean the most to us that we are grateful, that we have each other, that we have this place. And I hope we can find some of that together today. We're going to start with the sharing the greetings. So if you want to, greet those around you, those online, feel free to greet each other in the chat. And then when the music starts up, we will come together for our opening hymn, number 317, We Are Not Our Own.
We are not our own, earth roams us, human leaves on nature growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of lives divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice
Good morning. My name is Tim Atkins, and I serve as your Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration. And our story today is called The Trouble with Weeds. There was once a farmer named Clara who loved her little patch of land. It wasn't a grand farm, just a few rows of vegetables, a couple of fruit trees, and a wildflower meadow buzzing with flies. Every morning, Clara would walk her fields, admiring the way the sun caught the leaves, the dewdrops sparkling like little diamonds. One spring, though, trouble arrived. Weeds. Weeds, not just the little ones that you pluck out as you go, but towering, sprawling weeds that seem to grow overnight. How many of you have been frustrated by weeds in your garden? I know I'm not the only one. Well, no matter how hard Clara worked, they came back stronger. They wrapped around her carrot, overshadowed her squash, and crept into the flower beds. Clara grew frustrated. She missed the tidy rows, the orderliness of her garden. She muttered, "Why can't these weeds go away?" One afternoon, exhausted, Clara slumped under the apple tree. The weeds were everywhere, and she felt like giving up. She dug her fingers into the dirt more out of habit than purpose, and unearthed something expected. A tiny cluster of bright berries that sprouted beneath the weeds. She popped one in her mouth after checking to make sure it was safe first. And it was sweet and tart, unlike anything she'd ever grown before. Curious, Clara began to notice other things. The weeds had attracted butterflies she had never seen before. The roots had kept the soil cool and moist during a recent dry spell. And those invasive flowers, they were medicinal plants that she could use for teas and tinctures. Clara began to wonder if perhaps the weeds weren't a curse after all. She started talking to other farmers and gardeners in her village, asking if they've ever faced such trouble. And to her surprise, many of them had. Together, they shared tips and stories, learning how to work with what the land gave them, rather than trying to fight against it. Clara realized she wasn't just growing food, she was growing wisdom, connection, and resilience. She began to work with the weeds, not against them. She let some stay, trimming them back to where they needed to go. And her garden grew wilder, but it also grew richer, full of life she hadn't imagined before. That fall, Clara sat down to a meal bursting with color and flavor, made possible by the struggles she'd faced. Funny, she thought, raising her glass. Those weeds were the best gift my garden ever gave me. The end. I'd now like to invite Carmen McBride up for our invitation to the offering.
Good morning. I'm Carmen McBride. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a voice leader here at First Unitarian and also a member of the 501c4 board. This month's recipient for Change for Change is Voice. Voice is organized in civic engagement. There are three things that come to my mind about why Voice is important to me and our church and the larger Oklahoma City community. First, I'm so proud that we were one of the founding members of Voice. And we felt that it was the moment, the right time for us to become a key player with this grassroots movement. And so that brings me to my second point, which is the grassroots movement part of this organization. I think that is so critical for us, and for me especially, it's so important to build connections with all the member institutions that we have that are a part of Voice. The other churches, there are nonprofits, worker institutions, and other member institutions that we have. There are so many people that I probably would never have met if I weren't involved in Voice. And also, that means that it is about building relationships that move our city forward. So to do this, we have house meetings, which some of you have attended, delegates assemblies, which you have also likely attended, and in these situations that helps us to determine the issues that we have, like housing and education, payday lending, mental health, restorative justice. So these are decisions that often are made at the local level, and we want to be part of that. So that brings me to number 3, and that is about power, and that's part of what I was talking about at the local level. Maureen kind of touched upon this last week, but we want to see voice be all that it can be. That means we need to continually build upon increasing our power. That means more member institutions, filling the pews and auditoriums to capacity when voice has accountability sessions. That draws in the news media so that it's in the newspapers and all over social media that voice is right here working to make things better. So we want to develop relationships with the city's movers and shakers. So I'm talking about money now because we always need money to continue our purpose. So the movers and shakers, the elected officials, companies and organizations. That's how we make progress and ensure that we have a seat at the table and that we are part of the decision-making process in improving our quality of life. And we have fun too. We celebrate our achievements and our community members that are making a difference. At our annual gala, we do wine tastings, and we even had a road rally once that ran through all 4 quadrants of the city, and that was put together by Susan Bishop. So let's get our teams ready and our engines revved, because I think it might just be time for another one. Time now for our offering. 1UC is committed to giving 1% of the church budget for voice dues. Ushers will now pass the plate. And if you're watching from home, you may send a check to First Unitarian, include voice on the memo line, or you can log on to the website 1uc.org and make your donation that way. Please give generously.
Thank you, Bell Choir. Now is the time in our service where we sing our children, youth, and religious exploration teachers off to their classes. Please join us in singing Go Now in Peace.
Hello again. The season of Thanksgiving, a time to be thankful for all our blessings, the bounty of nature, the gathering of friends and family, the handed down recipes, and best of all, the leftovers. We are grateful. So where does struggle fit into this? Well, maybe it's the cost of the bounty of nature, or the complicated conversation with friends and family. But it's never the handed down recipes or the leftovers. That's sacred ground. It's funny how this tradition we call Thanksgiving started with a glorified story about the potluck gathering of pilgrims and Native Americans. A myth, really, to be a fly on the wall and experience the mixed emotions that were undoubtedly present. We know both parties were struggling. The pilgrims landed in a foreign land with little knowledge of how to shelter or feed themselves, and the Wampanoag people were generous enough to try and accommodate the immigrants on their own land, hoping for the best. They showed the pilgrims how to forage, hunt, and plant. That certainly didn't turn out too well for the Native Americans. I can't say that I personally struggle much. My white privilege affords me the luxury of just living my life. I grew up in the era of realizing the American dream, doing my best to fulfill expectations. I went through my young adult life, for the most part, oblivious to the struggles of others. But then I started reading books other than Nancy Drew. The first book I remember reading and feeling deep empathy was Red Shoes for Nancy by Marguerite Louise Hamilton. It was a true story written by the mother of a child who suffered a very rare, crippling disease. I remember sitting in the home library and just bawling. It was a real tearjerker. In college, I found myself in a dorm with foreign students, and I personally struggled with prejudice toward the food smells and the cultural habits of the exchange students. Then I went to Afghanistan and experienced an intense prejudice directed at me just for being a woman. That woke me up. I internalized that experience and reflected on it for years. Another crack in my naive white privilege was opened. In recent years, I've read Killers of the Flower Moon, seen the movie Hidden Figures, and visited Greenwood. I struggle with not knowing that these injustices were happening, and try to suppress the anger at humankind for not condemning such wrongs from the rooftops. I try not to ignore the struggles of others, but if those struggles aren't obvious to me in my daily life, researching and reading about those struggles helps to keep me aware of the problems. Hopefully, I will find ways to combat the injustices. I strive to do good trouble. Other life experiences that could be called struggles have come and gone, but any challenges I face do not define me. Buddhism teaches me that I do not have to live in the struggle. The practice of gratitude grounds me. So I live in gratefulness for this holiday. All the women folk in my family were great cooks and passed on some cherished recipes. Even though it's a lot of work, I conjure up the memories of being in the kitchen with my ancestors and channel their energy to recreate the feast. I even set the table with their china and silverware. Sometimes I even polish the silverware. Making time to recognize those moments, places, and experiences that fill me with gratitude keep me in the right frame of mind. Thanksgiving days can happen no matter the time of year. So here's hoping that all of you in the One UC community and beyond will have the gift of gratitude this Thanksgiving. And best of all, good leftovers.
All right, so my next trick is I get to learn how to do prayer and meditation. That'll be new. I struggle with meditation because it's really hard to get things to be quiet in my head sometimes. But I think I figured it out finally, and I figured it out because of a panic attack. Now, I won't go into why I was having a panic attack in the middle of a Mathis Brothers one day several months ago, but I finally figured out how to meditate as a result. From a panic attack, I learned to anchor myself to a single moment, to close my eyes, to shut out all the visual, all the sounds, the salesman trying to sell my friends a bed, the cars in the street, the little jingles in the radio, and just try and find silence. I focused on my fingertips, and this helped me a lot. So if you want to think about it, take your thumb, one or both hands, it doesn't matter, and just rub it across your index and your middle fingers in little circles. And it helped me be somewhere else. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't in a room full of people that I had to fear. I wasn't on a battlefield somewhere. I was just right here. We all have jobs. We all have responsibilities. We have taxes and we have trials. But sometimes we just need to be right here, because that is the only thing that can bring us peace. And now I would like to invite Kathy Webster up to make a little introduction for us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Webster. I have the honor of serving as the president of the congregation at this time. And I have a question. Is there a doctor in the house? We have a new doctor in our house. Ibuka has defended his dissertation. We're so proud of you, Ibuka. So he'll be receiving his Doctor of Musical Arts degree from the University of Oklahoma in December. So we'll keep the celebration going.
Yeah, doctors use tablets now. You know, it occurred to me I got up here twice already and have not introduced myself. I assume most of you probably know me, but I should probably be all official. I am Alicia Ravencroft. I'm your one of your RWT members. I'm your resident AV person. I am only up here this morning. I'm only able to do literally anything else on a Sunday because Tammy is up there helping out with AV, and we are very thankful to you, Tammy. Did anyone else struggle with being grateful when they were younger? I don't know if it was the fact that somewhere in the back of my head there's a very distinct cartoon voice angrily saying, "Why, you ungrateful little," and something colorful. I don't remember what it was, to be honest. Or the practice that sharing gratitude before a meal, which is a beautiful practice, is also delaying the food. And we have priorities, people, especially at Thanksgiving. Pie is a priority. So it's not hard to find something to be grateful for, but it is a struggle to feel grateful. It's hard moving past the all or nothing when it comes to gratitude. You know, I am very fortunate to have a home that is stable, to have people that support me. But if I am hungry, so help me trying to feel grateful for anything, then the world is terrible, everyone hates me, and nothing will ever get better. How could I ever be grateful again? It doesn't last, of course. And once we calm down, we can easily see that the things we are grateful for are numerous. But that's the problem with it, is emotions are weird. You know, those silly happy moments that later make you cry, or the expression of pure love that comes out of heartache. Those things we end up grateful for that we didn't think we could be. There is something to be grateful for in there if we are in a place to see it, and sometimes we are not. When we're overcome with emotions, with frustrations, immediately the good parts they're pushed out. The very edge of our perception, almost unseen for the blinding influence of a moment. Was it a good morning? Was it a bad drive? Did you get stuck behind that train? Did you have a bad date? A first love? A loss? An election? Whatever it was, positive or negative, in that moment, it overrides everything else. The world is not okay, and how can I be grateful? How can I possibly stop and appreciate that the weather is beautiful, that I made some new friends that are amazing, that I've got a safe home, that I've got a loving partner? How could I possibly be grateful? Well, when you put it like that, but let's not be harsh on ourselves, okay? This message is not to tell you should always feel grateful because some of your needs are not in jeopardy. Let's allow ourselves some humanity. We're so quick to try and work through and forgive others sometimes, but we don't allow ourselves that grace. You're allowed to not feel grateful. It doesn't change that you are, and that you show that appreciation when your heart has space to share those feelings with others. This pain doesn't mean you've been ungrateful. It just means you're struggling for that feeling to be the one that's taking up the most space right now. Those things we're grateful for, though, a lot of them sound pretty simple. You know, it doesn't seem like it's a lot to ask for everyone to have food, homes, medicines, people that accept them for who they are. So why do all our gratitude sound like things we're afraid to lose? Is gratitude simply how we respond to the threat of our needs being taken away? What are we grateful for? What are we grateful for? Not just because y'all have heard it, we refer to ourselves as we a lot. I'm talking about all of us as a community. And how do we show that gratitude when people are struggling? In a time when we are surrounded by so much division, the weight of adversity feels unbearable, and we struggle to feel any gratitude. But I believe that it is through some of these struggles, in their many forms, that we can learn to be truly grateful, not just for what we have, but for who we are becoming. Each of us has felt the sting of struggle at one point or another. For me, as a transgender woman in a hostile state, it comes in a few different varieties, and none of them are more entertaining. But struggle is not an individual experience. It's a shared one. It's in the choices we make every day, each of us, to live authentically as ourselves, to stand firm in our truths, to live our values. And when we face that struggle, we feel like we have to edit ourselves. You feel like the people you're around, you can't tell them your struggles because you know they're dealing with something and you feel like yours aren't valid. And sometimes the only way to end that struggle is to walk away from something, from someone, maybe even someone that you've been grateful for at some point in your life, someone who was important to you, who now has become someone that is hurtful. And sometimes you have to be grateful to let things go too. In a state that's fairly hostile right now, I face specific challenges at times that are painful, and I've struggled to talk about some of them, but that struggle has brought me people. It has brought me your compassion in ways that I could never have anticipated. And I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to struggle in your own way. I mean, my experience struggling with my specific challenges, all of you face loss. We face loss in this community this week. Struggle allows us to see things that matter, but when we're in the middle of it, it's hard. It is hard to be grateful for anything. And sometimes, I'll admit it, I struggle to be grateful for the people I know love me. Because as we know that sometimes when others don't see what you're struggling with, they can be the ones that hurt you. I'm not trying to find things that I'm grateful for. That's an easy list. I could go down the list, it would probably be half of this congregation. But there are still times when it feels difficult to be grateful, when you're struggling. Gratitude doesn't come from looking at our struggles and saying, thank you, I am glad that happened. I am not heavily medicated enough to believe that level of optimism. But it can come from acknowledging that these struggles have helped shape us. They mold us, they connect us to something beyond our individual selves. In the midst of struggle, we discover the depths of courage that we didn't know we had, and the depths of love in others that we didn't know was there. As I'm navigating a world that is currently seeking to deny my humanity, I am deeply grateful for the support I've found in my chosen community, the people who stand with me, who affirm me, who love me for who I am. That is a source of profound gratitude. And struggle makes us lean on each other in ways we might not otherwise. But this creates this deeper connection than any time of calm and happiness probably could. We are not truly grateful for something until we've had to work for it, to fight for it, to bleed for it at times. We still don't have to be grateful for the struggles, I promise, we don't. But being able to move from them, to grow from them together, maybe. The gratitude born from struggle doesn't just change us personally. It affects our friendships, our families, our relationships, our community. It has the power to change the world. Great and terrible moments in history, civil rights, science, the arts, social justice, the responses to terrorism, responses to disaster, were born from collective struggles. Our LGBTQ community is living proof of this right now. And since that's the one I've had the most experience with lately, it's been the easiest one for me to find community in. But from the civil rights movements, the women's movements, the fights for marriage equality, these struggles were never just for an individual. They were for a world, to reflect our shared values on our world, to struggle together. These movements did not end when the laws were changed, and they certainly don't end when those laws revert. They continue. We work every day to create a more inclusive world, a world where we can feel grateful for the lives of those who fought for us, grateful for the privilege of standing here today, and grateful for the ability to make a difference in our future. And there will still be days when it is a struggle, when it feels too heavy. But I will be grateful, knowing that what I do, what I say, the people that I can help, that they are grateful for me. And maybe ultimately struggle itself is something sacred. A lot of faith traditions have struggle and trial as some sort of sacred rite that you go through in order to understand the truth and the divine. I'm not a fan. I don't think it was necessarily required that we have to go through some of the struggles that we do, but if it has brought me all of you, then I am grateful for the struggle. Do I have to announce the closing hymn? I'm sorry, I missed that note. All right, so if you will please rise in body and spirit for our closing hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrows we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
We extinguish our chalice flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our heart. And I get to do the benediction too, this is fun. To be thankful, to be grateful, to appreciate every gift around us does not dismiss the trials and pains and struggle that got us to this point. But together, here with the friends, in this struggle to find gratitude in those we battle alongside, in the connections we find in the darkness. There are those whose minds are broken from the tragedy they know, and there are those still trembling in fear at the thought of going home. But those are there, those who will stand beside you, and together we'll go on. And to all of you, I dedicate my song.
Today is the last day of our altar, so if you have memorabilia on it, please come take it. We're taking it apart today.